Welcome to the Moxo podcast. I'm your host, Nikhita, and in today's episode, my co-host Christy and I will be speaking with Michael Davies, the innovative mind behind RevGen, a B2B marketing agency revolutionizing the industry. RevGen offers specialized lead generation services using 140 unique data points in the UK to deliver fast, reliable, and accurate results. They ensure every lead is a valuable opportunity. In today's episode, we'll explore how Moxo has helped RevGen streamline their services, enhancing lead generation and improving efficiency across their business. Michael will share how Moxo's workflows have enabled seamless management of their client projects, saving time, providing a great client experience, and reducing costs. Thanks for joining us today. Now let's welcome our guest, Michael Davies from RevGen. Mike, how are you?
Yeah, really well, thank you. How are we?
We're doing great. We're thrilled to be able to get the opportunity to talk with you and just pick your brain and learn more from your perspective. So thanks for doing this today.
Yeah, not at all. My pleasure.
Where are you joining us from today?
So I'm in the Midlands in the UK, just outside of Birmingham, if you know it.
Yes.
Not quite as sunny and lovely as California, unfortunately.
That's true, but California is a little too hot right now, so I
Right.
might want to trade. I'm speaking of, we're just really thrilled to learn more about your business, and if you can, just give our audience and all of us a little more insight into the story behind the founding of RevGen. What inspired you to create this bespoke, B2B marketing agency? How did it get started?
Yeah, of course. And so in a nutshell, RevGen is a demand generation agency, and it was born out of simply myself being a consumer in the same space, not really seeing the kind of service that I wanted for the businesses that I was representing. So as a sales director, I was looking for opportunities and ways to bring in proper qualified opportunities into the business, but in a actual safe way without outsourcing, offshoring completely. And essentially that you could hire SDRs from other businesses for a massive markup, or so I might as well hire them myself. But naturally, to scale the business, we wanted an outsourced solution. What I was finding as well is there's the opportunities that were being sent to me. They weren't necessarily always qualified to the standard I wanted. If someone said yes to a meeting, that was my lead. There wasn't really that level of qualification that I put into it. And when I asked these agencies, can we make sure that they have less than 6 months left on a contract? Can we make sure they have at least 20 users or 20 people? Because that's what's going to give us a return on investment. They said, well, no. If we spring up a company that has 50 employees, if they turn out to only have 10, then that's not our fault. So I realized there was a clear opportunity to create a much more transparent kind of way of working, and an agency which was a genuine extension of a lot of other companies, because I think a lot of agencies like to see themselves an extension of the team. But if you are an extension of a team, that means you should share the same goals, you should share the same mission statement. And so by doing that, we had to look at every campaign we did with two perspectives. One being every opportunity we send over is a genuine opportunity that their sales guys, their sales team are getting actually excited about and they can see the value in. But also, we have to look long term. We need to renew these accounts. We're not working with businesses for the short haul. And in order to renew business, we need to win them business. And so our focus was not just on achieving the campaign goal, but it was actually on generating our clients' actual revenue. And as you probably guessed, generating revenue, hence we came up with the name RevGen.
I like it. Thanks for sharing that with us. And I'm curious, in your industry, right, given your approach to this model and given how your thinking behind generating leads that are really purpose driven, right, for each client. Can you explain how you feel AI and data analytics have transformed the lead gen process and the quality of leads you provide? How do you think that the AI driven approach helps you differentiate yourself from other B2B marketing agencies? How do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's a really strong case, and I think almost anyone in any sector right now, whether it's marketing, finance, operations, will tell you the same thing, which is AI is a fantastic tool. It isn't an all-rounded solution. So anyone can jump on ChatGPT these days and generate something. I would say it's less than 1% of the time that should be the finished product or the finished solution. It needs human interaction. And so the way we leverage AI is a balance between AI and machine learning. I do think there is a really important distinction between the two, because what we do with artificial intelligence is understand what's going on in the market quickly, efficiently, and then apply that to human driven sales. We don't necessarily take it at face value. We still need to verify it, because whether it's email marketing or human driven marketing, we don't use scripts when we're calling out on the phone. However, when we're writing copy or coming up with sales strategies, if we took everything that AI gave us, it's never going to be human driven, because at the end of the day, artificial intelligence is just things it's learned from the internet. And there's so much out there that it becomes so impersonal, because it's basically taking an average of everything in the world. So there has to be that kind of personal aspect given to it as well. So essentially we use AI to be more efficient, and essentially that's where we become more cost effective. So again, the original pain point, one of the pain points we had was it was so expensive to outsource, because you're hiring a person, then you obviously need to give that company their margin. It priced out a lot of companies, whilst we're actually geared as much towards SMEs as we are enterprise level clients, because for every client we work with, they need to actually generate a return on investment. So we work as lean as possible, and by leveraging artificial intelligence to do a lot of that initial grunt work, that research that goes into it, that's what drives us to be much more cost effective and time efficient as well. By no means are we an AI driven agency where what you get is what GPT gives us that day. It's merely a tool which we've learned to hone, and we were very early adopters. We were doing it. Machine learning's been part of our model before ChatGPT's original release. And obviously when ChatGPT came out, along with a lot of other tools that are now available, they've become part of our stack, but certainly aren't the only element of sort of the setup we go through.
Well, absolutely. And it gives you a level of depth to get into verification of data, right? And we all know we've, used GPT. Have you ever used GPT to say, give me a draft of an email, right? But you've got to edit that email a lot afterwards, right? Gives you a baseline, and there's a level of depth and verification you get, but you have to do it yourself. So I see it in a way, and what you said is almost like an assistant to the process, right? Yeah. Where can you remove some of that routine work? And speaking of, what were some of the biggest challenges that you felt RevGen has faced that led you to finding Moxo, right? Well, what led you to even search for Moxo?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge we face is as we got our name out there, and naturally, my background is sales. RevGen is a sales agency, so naturally, we are all sales thoroughbreds through and through. So all we ever wanted to do is win business and win business and win business, and that was fantastic up until the point we realized, oh, we actually need to now manage this business and actually keep these clients on board and keep them happy. And being able to communicate with all of these different, all these different stakeholders and keep it all aligned in a clean kind of linear conversation became a bit of a challenge, because what we were finding is, and to this day, it's still a challenge, because some people, for example, they like to speak on WhatsApp. Some people like to talk on Teams. Some people like to email. And I will still just get phone calls from clients saying, hey, how's it going? And They just want a quick update. And even though we now have account managers in place, and that's great. I love to talk to my clients. I love to keep in touch, and we are a very people-facing business, whether it's virtual or in person. But there needed to be a clean system in place where actually, whether or not we spoke to people via email, whether or not we spoke to people through our portal, we had to keep track of all these conversations, and more importantly, where we were with all of these conversations, whether it's an onboarding a client midway through customer journey, or when it coming up to retention and renewing these agreements. And so the two big challenges we faced were clean onboarding and then client communication. And what I really wanted originally was to have an internal portal which looked impressive and functionally did everything we needed to do, which is a step-by-step, very clean process where we could say to clients, here's your to-do list, here's our to-do list, and at the end of that journey, we're ready to rock and roll. And that's what we wanted. And for a long time, I was basically speaking to developers. I was going to go down the route of custom developing something, which I'm sure anyone knows. Custom developing anything is the biggest headache. And, it's only till about version 4 do you get to something which is actually usable. And so when we came across Moxo, it was a little bit of a shining beacon for us, because essentially what we wanted was something that was not only nice, functional, clean, and easy to use, but most importantly was completely white labeled. So it came across as us as we immediately had this presence of a much bigger organization who had their act together, and it was all nice and professional. Everyone in the team could collaborate. Our clients could cleanly and clearly communicate with us. And obviously off the back of that, then we were able to onboard more people, and we're actually able to have more communication and more conversations because everything was drawn into one place, as opposed to the sort of the text, the calls, the emails. So it just made our process a lot cleaner. And most importantly is we don't have to worry about bugs, about the development issues, any of that, because Moxo just takes care of it. We just get saying, oh, there's a new feature coming out, there's a new this coming out, and we can kind of sit back and let it get better and better. So it was kind of a no-brainer for us, basically.
Yeah, especially being tech forward, I feel like we see how quickly tech is moving, and to customize your own portal or app, it could be obsolete in a few years and you have to revisit it. So I imagine it's so important to have something to scale.
Yeah.
And along those lines, so being such a pioneer in modernization and bringing kind of your clients into this modern world, you touched on how sleek and clean it is, but apart from it being white labeled, how important is it to be on the modern forefront, where it seems like email, text, calls, like that's almost archaic at this point. So to have an app, to have a portal.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it did a number of things for us in particular. So internally, we all immediately felt more organized. So everyone could speak internally to one another. We've got the relevant direct conversations between the team. So I can speak to my team directly. They can speak without me involved, which I'm sure is a very popular thing to do. They can have the group conversations. We have relevant teams. So, the marketing team, the sales team have individual chats as well as with each other. So it gave us immediately a platform where everyone could communicate with each other in a universal way, which again is the most important thing. I think from the client's perspective, again, just as soon as they signed up with us and we had something to go ahead with, as soon as they get that invitation to our portal, immediately they can see that, we are a bigger player in the market than just someone who's going to send them something, in PDF format. We have a DocuSign integration. We have, all of everything's linked internally. So whether it's, even invoicing, etc. Everything we want linked together so that everything, so the clients basically have a much cleaner journey with us. And just as importantly, I can see where we are with things. So, for example, whether they, instead of me logging into 5 different softwares to see where they are with each step of it, I just have a very simple 4-step process. Have they signed their agreements? Have they paid their invoice? Have they uploaded their assets? What we wanted is something which was easy for them, but selfishly easy for us. And so the whole team can see where we are with things, as opposed to, has so-and-so sent this? Has so-and-so received that? So I think it just elevates the brand so quickly when you have a nice, clean working function like that. As you say, an app which basically allows for that. But even so, the app still alerts people via email. So even if someone is, let's say, a late adopter and they are, harder to kind of push in that direction and, start using the app, I think it still caters to those people where they can still have their notifications pushed to them in the right way. So it works on it works on a lot of levels, basically, especially for our kind of organizational chart.
Well, and that just gets me thinking, right? Because there's so much time, and we spoke about this recently with another customer, and I hear this day in and day out, right? The amount of time that gets lost in a process that's not actually dedicated towards the task itself, right? It's all the time in between of the follow-ups. Hey, did you, actually approve it? Did you send it over to the person who needs to?
Yeah.
I mean, I think I read a study that it's like 70% plus of time in a process, especially in business services specifically, goes towards these type of routine manual tasks of just the management and facilitation of the back and forth versus the actual meaningful advice, or let's say the completion of a signature. I think this is even in a loan process. The actual document and filling out can take 5 hours to get through a full loan process, but the process can be 1 to 2 to 3 months. So I think what's a common thread we hear, and clearly I can hear that this is something that you've gone through and faced, is the operational efficiency of things, right? You want to take care of your customers. You want to make sure that the account managers and staff that you're dedicating towards them are truly working with the customer. That's why they're there, right? Versus spending their time in a lot of these routine tasks, you lose time, and that eventually leads to less revenue generation, right? So it's really interesting to hear about how it's impacted your process, especially when, yes, there are processes, right? The process itself of onboarding, but then there's so much nuance around how each customer is managed based on their specific request, which is where it gets into the service aspect. There's more of a concierge or customized experience per client.
Absolutely. I mean, as I said earlier, I'm very sales driven. I'm very sales orientated.
Yeah.
So the time we spend doing admin is the time I'm not able to be driving the business, selling our services. And so from a very selfish standpoint, it saves everyone time, but it also saves us a huge cost. I mean, I think, we kind of, our objective was kind of to have as linear a journey as possible. And that included using less software. So for example, we had forms from Microsoft. We had, software for, doing the e-signatures, for uploading assets. So we went from having Microsoft Forms to Dropbox to everything then became not only one simple form, but also, using the logic feature, for example. We know that if someone, for example, we can have one form for almost any client now, because if they tell us, they are going to be an email campaign client, or they're going to be a telemarketing campaign client, immediately it will know what assets they need to request, rather than, again, one of the account managers manually having to say, okay, this is who they are, this is what they need. It fills in all the blanks, and it just speeds up that process. So the account manager's job went from, they had to collect 5 assets from each client and check which assets they needed each time, to just go and see where they are on the journey and just chase them along. To say, could you just log in, see what you need to do? And it makes it so much better, because essentially, again, it goes from, I think what Moxo's allowed us to do as well is actually have more clients per account manager. And that in itself is a really, really big cost saving tool, because naturally, the more clients each account manager can look after, obviously the better for us, and without sacrificing client facing time. If the client gets the relevant information they need and they are able to communicate with us a clean way, as long when we're not having any kind of pushback from that, any kind of bounce back from that, we are just seeing that each account manager can cleanly look after at least 50% more clients by having the right tools in place, where again, instead of having to pick up the phone and ask account managers what's going on, where are they can just be prompted each week to log into their portal, check what's going on, check some stats, and all the information is there. So we just give the clients more options, I think.
And you spoke about how important it was for you to offer transparency to your clients. So how does Moxo help give that transparency to them so they can see, what's happening and step by step and sort of guide them?
Yeah. From each kind of journey they go through, they get a lot more transparency. So again, we talked a lot about the onboarding process, so they can see exactly what their homework is, what they need to give us, what their kind of next task is. Equally, they can log in and simply have a conversation directly with their team. So obviously we have a creative person, we have an account manager, and I'm usually still attached to the team. So they can communicate with everyone in the team or individually, and actually, again, save individuals time by not having to go through the wrong person to get the information they require. So they can have more communication and transparency. That gives them, again, is we want to say to people, we're an open book, where you can come talk to us anytime. And I think that allows for that quite cleanly. Additionally to that, having the ticketing system, again, is a really, really clean way for us to be able to respond to clients as quickly as possible, so they can request things through the ticketing system, whether that's an issue they might have, a technical bug, or most often is just they can request an immediate report. So if they don't want to wait till their weekly report from us, they can just raise a ticket and say, could I have a quick update? And either someone on the team can then simply see a task where I need to send them a report, as opposed to, again, getting lost in the emails where they're getting all kinds of different requests. It just cleans up the process. So again, we can assign then the correct ticket to the correct user. So for example, if it's someone requesting more assets, that goes straight to creative. If someone needs an update on their account, that can go to the account manager. If they want to talk about renewals, typically it will come to the sales team or me. So it just allows for, I think, the client to have a much cleaner process as well, and they know that they can speak to any of us quite cleanly and quite quickly, as opposed to that need to go through the different channels or kind of try and get hold of us one way or another. So just having all the information available, I think, is the main thing, and that's what they've kind of really appreciated.
And you were saying that in order to be an extension of your client's business, to really be there, not just to be part of everything, you have to be super transparent. And we call them workspaces in Moxo for a reason, because it really does feel like it's this workspace, you're working together, and sometimes that gets lost over email. There's a back and forth, but it feels so much more collaborative. So I can imagine that helps you be really in sync together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one area in which we use the workspaces a huge amount is, so with RevGen in particular, we're booking appointments for clients, which usually goes straight into their diary. But that information is usually publicly available to everyone involved in the meeting. And we want to be able to send notes and a confirmation to the client. So actually, we use those workspaces in particular for any meeting or opportunity set. We create an acknowledgement for the client with all of the notes and a recording of the calls. The client can then simply go in, check it out, and if they say, yep, everything looks good, they can acknowledge it, and then we know that meeting's been accepted. So it makes it really clean for us. Alternatively, they can comment on that acknowledgement. So, when we're booking a few meetings per week or sometimes multiple per day, we don't want people sending emails saying, we have questions about something without the relevance. And so it makes it a lot cleaner when we know each acknowledgement we sent them, there is a conversation attached to each opportunity we've sent through. And we've adopted the same thing internally, because what I like to see is if I have a question for one of the sales team, I might ask him or her, for example, I'd like to understand a little bit more. You mentioned this in the conversation from the recording, and we can have that conversation in the notes. And once I understand it, I'll say, that's great. I'll acknowledge it. Equally, the clients can either raise a ticket to pick up a conversation to discuss it further, book a meeting, or they can even create their own acknowledgement to do, for example, to obviously, make us aware, for example. So, and again, from the most simplistic part as well, for us, we have a set target with clients, so we can cleanly see, okay, there's been 5, there's been 10 opportunities gone in for the month of June. We're done. We know where we're at, and we can then have a conversation with the client to say, how did these go? We want your feedback, for example. And yeah, I think just having a very clean way of kind of essentially separating the opportunities, and obviously having separate conversations per acknowledgement we create, for example, and per workspace. And again, we'll have a workspace which is a general chatter for the campaign. We'll have another one around renewals. We'll have another one around if they're also doing their marketing through our other brands. Again, we can have separate conversations.
Well, I think something that you mentioned that's so powerful is really this ability to maintain context in whatever you're doing, right? There's the workspace itself, like Christy was saying, and what we've clearly heard you've done and how you've set it up. The workspace maintains the context of the entire process. So, workspace per process. So, when you're going inside of that workspace, you're working on X process, and you're, involved in all of the various tasks or conversations that are all directly related back to that. So it makes, the whole process of actually going through a certain process and organizing it on both the internal side for your account managers, for you getting a bird's eye view into what's happening in each account, right? And operationally managing how well your team is performing, or, how each process is running. I'm sure that makes an impact. And then there's also this idea of maintaining context per action. So like you said, if somebody's going in and you have the persistence to be able to go back and say, oh, in that one step 3 months ago, here are the things that were said, right? And it maintains, the design itself maintains the context for you so that you can easily refer back where you need to, and vice versa, right? So it, in a way, from what I'm hearing, there's this powerful idea of maintaining context throughout each step in a process, throughout each process, giving you organizational visibility at a high level. So I'm sure you can then see, oh, hey, there are these 5 processes running, but maybe this step is taking more time. Why is that, right? Is it somebody not following up from the client side? Do we need to nudge them here? I think there's a lot of power in that. And then I think the second side of that, obviously, is the ability to go in and say, where can you improve? I think this is something we hear from our clients too, right? If you're able to see how 5, 10, 15, 20 processes are running, it's a constant evolving game of saying, where can I continuously improve on what we're doing, right? What we're doing currently, it works great. What about 6 months from now? Is there something more we could be doing? So I think it's great to hear that you've really honed in on that in the way you run your processes and the way you take advantage of your portal. And clearly it's helping maintain and drive processes to close.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, when we were first setting up our portal, I wanted to, we looked at kind of, why are we doing this? It's obviously to automate the process and create clarity for our clients. And I think through the kind of support we got from the team at Moxo, we very quickly created a platform where actually the onboarding process, I would say less than 5% of the clients we've onboarded have needed help actually using the portal. Because, through the quick links, for example, when they log into their dashboard, all of those links link through to individual walkthrough videos, which we've recorded of guiding them through the portal, how to raise a ticket, how to communicate with the team, where and when to, create their next actions. And so just by doing that, and that process was so clean and simple to do, again, it's just allowed us now to, again, be a little bit more hands off. And actually, what a lot of clients want is basically just be able to say, tell us what we need and we'll do it. They don't necessarily, people don't have time. I think a lot of our core audience and our core sort of clientele are going to be business owners or senior leadership. And they don't have time to sit in 30-minute, 1 hour Teams calls all the time, saying, have we got this? Have we got that? Realistically, what they want is a clean to-do list and an easy way to upload it. And from our end, what we want is then a clean place to store everything securely and then have record of it so the relevant team members have access to it. And that's the other side of what we wanted, because again, back in the day when everything was stored in our own company cloud, I would have to come up with a lot of complex permissions. So certain people could see certain documents. I wanted myself and the account managers be able to see certain client, contracts, invoices, for example, but the creative team would only want access to the assets. So every time we onboarded a client, I went through this process of, clients, the client folders, everything had to be stored securely, to be compliant, but then each team member had different access to different things, whilst with Moxo, that is literally the flick of a switch. So it made us, I think it keeps us compliant, and that's a big part of what we do. As you probably imagine, we handle a ton of data, and so we have to be really careful and really compliant with things. And so being able to store and give the correct access to the right people in the team, that is a really big factor for us, again, through cost and efficiency.
And just to dig in a little further there, have you measured any key statistics that you could share with us? Maybe even, qualitatively, quantitatively, from the perspective of you're using this for onboarding, right? How long did onboarding take you before? How's it working now? And then for a lot of these ongoing processes, you talked about your account managers being able to serve more clients than they were before. It would just be great to know if you have any such stories or stats you can share with us.
Yeah, of course. We've definitely measured the onboarding time, because that was essentially probably the biggest pain point we had at the time. So our average onboarding used to be, for RevGen, it was 2 weeks. That onboarding process is now down to probably about 4 days. And again, most of that was just waiting on people to give us what we needed, for example. So being able to, a big one, for example, again, through a security measure, is sharing credentials for emails, for example. And a lot of people's IT departments said you can't just send passwords in the body of an email. So now we have a form which obviously protects the text, and only the the relevant people can actually access that data. So no one in the team can access it, again, except for those who actually need it, which is basically the creative team who set up those accounts. Exactly the same goes for the actual account management then. So we used to have to manage about 30 clients. We had almost an entire day, I'd probably say 10 a.m. till end of day on Thursday, had to be set aside so we could make sure that every client had properly, we'd collated the information and shared it cleanly and properly for them so they knew what was going on. And so we've tweaked things a lot over time, but recently that is now down to, I think we spend 2 hours a week now doing our reporting. And that's done on a Friday morning. That is essentially collating the information we have nice and quick. Because again, it's all in one place and the account managers can just access that information quickly. We can get feedback from the agents, from the creative team almost immediately. So again, it's the most important thing for us was to obviously cut costs where possible, but in reality it was the biggest cost saving exercise we've ever done is by saving time and being more efficient, and that simply just meant we could have more clients for the same amount of resources, and so that in itself was the biggest cost saving, I'd probably say.
Like you were saying, with AI, like it gets you so far, and we have to use these modern tools in order to stay competitive. But then you have to go beyond that, because if everyone is just doing the same thing with AI, there's no competitive nature to it. But what we've heard from a lot of our customers, and I hear this from you, and you're saying how much time it saves, is that it actually allows you to be a little bit more human with your clients and a little bit more human with your business, because you're not focusing on these, like Nikhita was saying, these like small repetitive tasks that are like just kind of like data entry over and over. And then it gives you more time to really be connected to your clients in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a big part of what we wanted to do, is be able to, we were at a point probably about a year ago. We were sending a consistent report to every client every week, and it was only when I realized that we weren't getting a huge amount of feedback in return. And when I just started picking up the phone and ringing up clients and saying, hey, how's everything going? They went, I think it's okay. And I said, well, what's up? And they said, well, the reports are quite generic. They were kind of like, everything's fine. We're ticking over. This is what happened this week. And they said they actually wanted some insight. And so what we now enabled is the agents actually give the do the reports themselves. They do it personally, because we wanted actual, from the horse's mouth feedback, so they could understand, the important thing for me was we're representing their business. We are literally on the forefront, on the front line, talking to their to their prospects, to the potential customers. So it's really important that they know they're in safe hands. We're representing their business well. We aren't taking this task lightly. And so it's important that they got that feedback a bit more directly. And it was, so actually we started, getting our team to send reports directly. And again, having kind of the platform to do that, they are able to just simply communicate with clients directly, not having to send individual emails again, which can get lost. We can have a channel specifically for that. If we were speaking to our client, they don't have to type in each individual name. They can just type the client name and it will send the group message. So it just allowed for the clients to get a little bit more relevant feedback, I think, rather than sending something generic. Because I don't know about you guys, I'd rather not send or receive a report which didn't actually tell me anything. It's just a waste of everyone's time. And if anything, it can be quite frustrating, feel like, they're just kind of passing us over. So we wanted to be able to give clients a bit more insight. Again, focus on that extension of the team. We always say to clients, treat us like we're in the next room. We're just plugging away, doing the job. If you need us, we're a door knock away virtually. So we want to be able to give that feedback. And I think Moxo's allowed us to kind of have, that more internal chat and, find ways of obviously integrating into their system. So, a lot of clients we work with, if they've got internal chats, for example, we simply set up the BCC so that when we talk into their group chat or into their workspace, that message goes directly into the relevant channels on theirs, even if they're not using the platform. So it does integrate really well. And I think that's, again, allowed us to work with people who weren't necessarily super open to like having another platform on their deck, which is perfectly understandable, but I think that's what allowed us to, us keep working the way we're working without having to sacrifice kind of our own internal workflow.
Yeah, absolutely. And in a way, when you're adopting new technology, you want to feel like it is an extension of the existing processes you've set up, in the sense that you want it to really extend the work that you're doing in a positive way. And sometimes that means replacing parts of the way you've run your process. But many a time, and this is something I think we hear from you as well, right? We see this with a lot of customers. There is a way of doing things that and it's working, right? It's okay. It works. You've just about got a hold on it. And
Yeah.
maybe that process itself in terms of the steps you want to take don't change, but it's the actual execution of it and then extension of it through Moxo that ends up helping, let's say, save time and money. So, you could be saying these are 4 steps in my process, but now I'm running that same process. I'm just doing it in a way that makes it a lot more seamless. And it sounds simplistic, but that's really hard to do, right? And businesses struggle with it day in and day out. So it's really exciting to hear a story again where you've been able to master this and clearly have a positive impact on your business, right? Which inherently means a positive impact on the customers that you're taking care of and their businesses.
Totally. Yeah. And I think I sound probably quite generic where, like a lot of kind of business owners where, nothing's ever enough and nothing's ever good enough. And I'm constantly, I spend at least 3 hours a week trying to find ways to optimize our service and, looking at ways of how can we work differently? How can we be better? And, part of that is just constantly looking at our customer's journey and our internal journey. And I, if I had a pound for every time I said the word linear, because I'm super, super focused on making things, as simple as possible. Because again, in my opinion, the simpler the journey, the more cost effective, the more time efficient. And, if we can make our customers' lives easier, and obviously, again, they do genuinely see us as part of their team, we're going to have a much longer relationship with them, and also they're obviously going to see a better return. And the same goes for our internal team. I want to make their lives as easy as possible, and my job is to deliver a good service and keep the team happy. And so if I can do that by making their work life easy and actually achieve their goals as easy as possible, it's only going to pay dividends for us as a business. So I do think it's really important just to constantly be looking at new ways to drive that. And I think a big part of that has been Moxo and all of the constant updates that keep coming. There's a new version of Moxo coming, which is really exciting, and I'm looking forward to getting a personal tour around, I think, next week. And obviously with that, all the new things that keep coming in, all the new integrations, etc., that we can see that it's just getting better and better, from a point where we're already really happy with what we've got. But it's just exciting to see that there are going to be more and more ways for us to kind of streamline our processes and essentially just keep up with the growth that we're obviously aiming to achieve.
I would love to know, just in the way you operate RevGen, where do you see the company going the next 5 to 10 years? How do you, or maybe the right question is, are there certain advancements or trends that you see in your industry that would impact the way you would plan for the company over the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've already taken steps towards trying to jump on those opportunities. In particular, we know what our strong suits are. We're definitely specialists in the tech arena. So we have a lot of clients in IT, telecoms, software. We're focused more on enterprise SaaS businesses at the moment, just because they're the ones who have there's a very specific requirement which we can touch on, which perhaps a more call center based agency just couldn't, because it's more about knowledge and expertise rather than following scripts. You need to be quite reactive to what people's problems are and be able to understand the solution and apply them in the right way in each conversation you have. So we're definitely really focused on obviously our trade, but in particular, we just noticed over the past year, we started the BuzzGen agency, which is a social media marketing agency. And that was simply because we had a huge number of clients who were what we call obviously, sales customers, and they, had a natural need for marketing. And so our internal marketing teams started kind of doing bits and bobs for other clients. And that kind of formed into its own agency. And so what we're seeing now is, again, each brand specializes in its own kind of area. So BuzzGen is very much focused on the SME market, sole traders, small businesses, offering, again, that, really good quality of service, the full marketing agency experience, but at a really affordable cost, because most agencies just simply price out small businesses who just don't have an opportunity to even get their foot in the door, because they don't have the resources to even start to get them to the point where they could afford those services. So we've tried to develop services and packages which actually allow businesses to get on the marketing ladder, basically, and not get stuck in that rut of, we can't afford an agency and I don't have time to do it myself. So with BuzzGen, we have a pay as you grow program, which basically means for the first 6 months of our partnership, we discount the service over £1,000, and only over each month, as we gradually get them to their goals and targets, do we increase the pricing. So we start really cheap with them, and basically allows them to get their foot in the door. And only as they start to see the return on investment, do we gradually get them to the point where even that full price level, what we call it, is still roughly 40% cheaper than the average. And that's simply because internally as an operation, we're so much more cost effective and efficient, because we're a marketing agency born of a sales agency. So we're a lot more efficient than the average. We don't have a big fancy warehouse office with beanbags everywhere. But what we do have is an amazing team, all locally based around in the UK, but mostly working remotely, so that we can deliver a really cost effective service, but from marketing experts.
Well, and thanks for sharing that with us, because that's so interesting. I feel like in a way, what you're saying is, when you're creating such an incredible model and you can be so lean, right? And as you said, you have these very linear processes, you're highly structured, you're able to truly optimize each process. You're able to be extremely cost effective, save time, save money. And then that leads essentially to being able to expand to new lines of business, right? In a way, if you have a certain process, but you're not able to expand more than that in terms of the time that you have, it's hard to create other service offerings, right? Whereas when you're able to save more time and you can make each of your account managers and creative team members more efficient, more productive, then you also have a unique market opportunity to create more tailored service offerings, right? And expand your book of services, let's say.
Yeah, exactly. And, as a group now, RevGen and BuzzGen are two of our brands. We have a third brand called CoverGen, which is a health insurance brokerage. And that was simply born out of, a customer that became so large, it basically quantified its own brand. But what's so interesting about that is it's opened the door for us to look down new avenues. And, last year we converted, I think, £2.5 million worth of IT business for other businesses. And it basically opened the door for us to say, we're clearly capable of converting this business and generating these opportunities. We just need the service provision to actually supply it. So the same goes across most sectors. So whether HR and IT, for example, are two, IT Gen and HR Gen are businesses which will eventually be launched, hopefully by the start of 2025. And I think that's where the group is likely headed, because simply what RevGen's allowed us to do is basically sell anything. So we know what we're good at and we know what we're focused at. If we're able to service it effectively, then we are able to build a business around it, and we're able to fill that business with opportunities. So there really is a good opportunity for us, obviously, to expand the brand. And that's sort of our ambition, I'd say, over the next couple of years in particular, and over the next few years, obviously, try and grow individual brands into their own sort of entities. But right now, RevGen's working really well in kind of the area it's focused. And I think it's important we through trial and error and, and ups and downs, we know what we're good at and we want to stick to that. And the same with BuzzGen, it's a really fantastic, I think, opportunity for us, obviously, to grow the brand, but also for local businesses in the UK and beyond, basically, who just want a really good, effective service, but at an actual affordable price.
Thank you so much, Mike. It was such a pleasure, speaking with you today. Amazing to just learn how you've thought about building your business, right? There's a lot of these inspirational stories we hear. And I think the thing that's always the most interesting is the thinking behind it, the framework, how you went about executing it, because that takes constant thinking and it's never over, right? There's always something more you can do. There's always some other way to improve the way you're running your business, the way you're managing your operations, and therefore the way you're able to better offer service. So thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Mike Davies from RevGen.
No, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.